morning, dear guests, and welcome to the second Read for Profession Dubrovnik event. So this time, Finnish writer Emmi Itäranta will be interviewed by journalist Mislav Cimic. A few words about Women's Bank for those who are first time here. So Women's Bank is a Finnish non-profit organization which supports women's sustainable entrepreneurship and livelihood in Africa, Asia and the Middle East. So from the beginning, in these 15 years, we collected more than 20 million euros.
Good evening, dear friends, on behalf of Hotel Lapad. I'm glad that we are together again for this purpose of this noble case. Tonight we will read the modern Finnish literature, and there is no better place for that than this old summer house where 400 years ago the Dubrovnik nobles read the modern literature of that time, Držiće Gundulić, who became the foundation of modern Croatian literature. I don't know if these works we are reading tonight will become classics of the Finnish literature, but what I do know is that we will help someone who needs it. Enjoy this evening.
Your Excellency, Mr. Ambassador Kankaanpää, distinguished guests, dear organizers, I'm very happy in the name of our mayor, Mr. Mato Frankovic, to greet you all in our beautiful city. Dubrovnik is World Heritage Site under UNESCO protection since 1979. I believe that education is one of the most powerful tools against every injustice in the world, against poverty, against unrespect for the things about between the nations and human beings. With a good education, we will make the world better, and that's why I congratulate these organizers for beautiful Women's Bank purpose, for very noble and human things that you're doing. Thank you very much. You're very welcome in our city. Thank you.
So, cheers, živjeli kipis. So now I would like to warmly welcome Sir Kalle, Finnish ambassador to Croatia, who will open this event.
Thank you very much. Dobro večer, dame i gospodo, ladies and gentlemen, hyvät naiset ja herrat. As a friend of books and reading, I feel very honored to open this Read for Profession event organized by Women's Bank in Dubrovnik. Reading plays many important roles in our society. It can give a child the joy of learning, or it can may open doors to numerous new worlds that literature as fine art brings us. Today we have with us the excellent novelist Emmi Itäranta, whose books have been published in various languages and have received several awards. Emmi, great to have you with us today. In addition to being a pleasure, reading is also a way for a better life. Learning to read makes it possible for women in developing countries to get a profession, have a higher income, and even become an entrepreneur. And that's why we are here today. We are collecting money for the Women's Bank, which in turn gives loans to women in developing countries. So, as a conclusion, let's read. Let's read for learning, for pleasure, for understanding. Voilà.
So please, Emmi and Mislav, the stage is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming, and thank you for the warm welcome you've already given us all, especially our guest, Finnish author Emmi Itäranta, as you already heard, even in the days before this event. Only a few facts about our guest. Emmi is a Finnish author who writes fiction in Finnish and in English. Her novels have been characterized, and I love this sentence, as lyrical dystopias with strong ecological undercurrents. Her award-winning debut novel, Memory of Water, written in 2014, has been translated into more than 20 languages, and a film adaptation has been made titled The Guardian of Water, so you may even see it on the big screen and in television. Itäranta has also published 2 other novels, The Weaver or The City of Woven Streets and The Monday Letters. She's an award-winning author, having received numerous awards in Finland and, of course, abroad. She lived in the United Kingdom for 14 years and moved back to Finland in 2021. She now lives in Tampere and continues to write in 2 languages. And after this introduction, I have to say good evening and welcome to Dubrovnik.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
You had different jobs. You worked as a journalist, as a columnist, a theater critic, as a dramaturg, and the base of everything is actually writing, isn't it?
I was already in my 20s doing that when I realized that actually writing fiction would be something that I would like to do. I had done different writing jobs by then, but I had never really given a proper try to writing short stories or a novel. And I began to realize at the time that this would be something I would actually really like to do.
So how does your writing process work? Where do you start from and where do you plan to finish?
My writing process tends to be a sort of circular type of thing. So I usually sit down quite early on and I write an outline for the entire story. It's usually quite loose. It usually changes along the way when I work on the novel. But I usually always know where the story starts from, and I always know where it's going to end. I don't really know how to get to the end from the beginning, so that's the part I have to figure out while I'm writing. But I find that it makes it easier for me when I know where I'm going, when I know the ending and I have like a goal that I'm writing towards, then it's easier to keep the story going.
When you started your first novel in school, did you think it was going to be published? Did you think that it would have the journey that it had up till now?
No, not for 1 minute. So when I started writing this, which eventually became a book, I wrote like maybe 3 pages and submitted them to my creative writing course at the University of Kent. And at the time I thought, this might be a short story if I'm really lucky, but it probably won't be even that. It's probably just going to be 3 pages that I write and then forget about.
Just homework.
Yeah, just homework. But one of my teachers who read those 3 pages basically said to me, you know what, I think that this might be the beginning of a novel. And I didn't believe her at the time. I really didn't think that I would be able to write a novel. I wanted to. I had this dream of I want to write a novel, but I didn't believe that I could actually do it. But my teacher encouraged me to keep working on those pages, which were essentially a young woman in a future world preparing tea from the last drop of water that she still had left. And those 2 or 3 pages became what is the prologue of Memory of Water, and I actually changed them very little. So for the rest of the book I did a lot of revising. I rewrote a lot of the chapters many times, but that beginning, those first few pages, remained almost exactly the same as I wrote them nearly 15 years ago.
Something I'm very interested in, why dystopias? I've read somewhere that you said that it's easier for you to imagine a dystopia rather than a utopia. Why is that?
I wish I knew. I mean, maybe there was a dystopian bug that bit me 15 years ago, and that's why I started writing dystopias. I actually don't know. Okay. But I mean, I think one reason might be that in dystopias, because they are essentially about relatively dark worlds where difficult things happen and people have to survive under very difficult circumstances. I think for me dystopias are interesting from a storytelling point of view because the difficult circumstances create immediate tensions in the story. And another thing which I have actually thought about a lot is that for me dystopias tend to be about hope, because they are, at the end of the day, regardless of how dark the world is, they are about survival, and they are about building a better world under those difficult circumstances. So I think that when I'm writing dystopias, I'm always also writing about hope.
And so from the page to the big screen, what was that journey like for you, since you were the one who created the page? How involved were you in the process of making the movie according to your book?
I actually had very little to do with the film itself. So when the director first approached me, I was really excited about the idea of someone turning my story into a film, but I was also terrified because you've written a story and basically someone saying, hey, I'd like to make a film out of this. It means that they're going to pull your story apart, change it, put it back together, and the end result might be amazing or it might be terrible. And you'll never know what you're going to get. You are taking a risk there.
Was there ever a veto moment when you said, okay, this can't go through? I don't want it to be like this on the big screen.
Yeah, there was one, and that was quite early on. So the director wanted to change the ending of the book completely, as in it will become a completely different ending, it will become a completely different story. I don't want to spoil it for you because probably many of you have not read the book, but basically she said, your book ends this way, I would like the film to end that way instead, how would you feel about this? And I said no. No, because again, it will become a different story about different things. It would no longer be this story. If you are going to tell this story, you cannot change the ending that much. So they did make some changes in the end, but I think they respected what I had done with the book, and I felt that they found a good way around it.
It's interesting and important that you write in both languages, in English and in Finnish, and it's not just a matter of translating the Finnish into English. Is that difficult for you? How does that work for you?
It's very slow, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend it as a method of writing. The way it works for me is that I always write one chapter in both languages, in Finnish and English, and then I often polish both versions before I move on to the next chapter. So when I have the entire manuscript, I have it in both languages. So I don't write it in one language first from the beginning to end and then start translating. I think it would become a different book if I did that. I wouldn't be able to tell you what the difference would be because I've never tried, but I think it will be a different book. So the two languages work in a sort of interaction with each other all the time, and they shape the way that the book turns out to be. But yeah, it is very slow going, and I don't ever remember sitting down and making a conscious decision of I'm always going to write everything in two languages from now on.
Anybody who reads your books, I think, can see how environmental themes and topics are very important to you. How come?
Again, I don't really know why I have ended up writing about them time after time. I know that when I started working on Memory of Water, I think I mentioned before that it was nearly 15 years ago that I started writing the book. At the time, there were not that many novels talking about climate change or climate crisis or environmental topics. I'm not saying there were none. There were definitely some, but there were few compared to how many there are today. And I felt that climate change was something that needed to be written about because it's here, it's around us, it's going to be with us, for the rest of our lifetimes and for generations to come. It's not going to go away. So I would have liked to read some novels talking about climate change, and I couldn't really find many. So I thought maybe I need to write about this. And I think that a lot of writers thought the same at the same time, because within the past 10 years we have really started seeing environmental themes and climate crisis being written about in novels, in literature, in fiction. But I think it's something that is going to remain a timely topic for a long time. And I'm also anxious about it to some extent, so maybe it's a way of addressing my own anxiety to sort of create a safe space through fiction to sort of process these things.
And the thing, so to say, that connects reading and writing is the written word. Any kind of word connects people. We tend to forget the beauty and the importance of words, don't we?
I think we do. Words are, of course, not the only way of communicating, but words can do so much, and we only need to allow it to happen, really.
I think that's a beautiful thought to conclude this conversation. We could go on and on. I still have questions in my mind, but we have to stop somewhere, and I think it's better to leave something for the imagination. Emmi, thank you so much for coming to Dubrovnik and being a part of Dubrovnik's Woman Bank.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for coming.
And of course, thank you to all of you for coming, and we hope you will enjoy this evening. Thank you.
So, dear guests, buffet dinner is served, so you can start and have a dobar tek, hyvää ruokaa, halua ja bon appetit.
Možda je to išlo od tih koji
Ja bi ovaj cijelo
So, hope you had all a wonderful night. Thank you again for coming and supporting us. Of course, thank you very much, Emmi and Mislav. It was a really pleasant night. Thank you. Have a good night.